1999 had a lot of famous films: The Matrix, Toy Story 2, Blair Witch Project, and a lot more, but there is one that stands out as similarly iconic but also controversial, that being American Beauty.
My name is Lester Burnham. This is my neighborhood. This is my street. This is my life.
The film is regarded by some as a masterpiece and others as aging horribly and falling from grace. And having recently seen the film, I wanted to see if it really did age that poorly. Now, the first and most obvious thing is, of course, Kevin Spacey being the main character and the almost creepy foreshadowing of his alleged abuse of underage children. As in the film, Lester has fantasies and a crush on his daughter's 16-year-old best friend, in which he begins to have these fantasies of her and these surrealist dreamlike sequences across the film. However, I do think the film condemns him, in my opinion, as he's presented as a loser at the start of the film, and once he takes control of his life, he comes across as much more demanding and more manipulative. And the fact the main actress of the film, Mena Suvari, history of being abused by Hollywood does add a darker tone to the film. I do think the film has a lot of positive and negatives. I would say one of the negatives of the film is the fact it's rather heavy-handed and not subtle at all, whether it's Lester's wife, Carolyn, saying out loud that she needed to de-stress herself somehow, or Lester taking control of his life, which he's told to do by Ricky Fitz. It's a character I'll get back to later. Or Ricky Fitz basically deconstructing Angela to her face.
She's not your friend. She's someone you use to feel better about yourself.
Go!
And you're boring. And you're totally ordinary. And you know it.
And I think the film hinges on one scene in particular, that being the paper bag scene, which is key to the film and whether or not a person will enjoy the film, as it's either, on one hand, pretentious garbage or a deep philosophical message about beauty. So if you didn't like that scene, I think the film ages quite poorly and becomes much more pretentious. But if you like it and follow it, you are more likely to engage with the film, in my opinion. Now, the film is criticised for being irrelevant now due to, in large part, 9/11 and the housing crisis, as the themes are focused on American suburban life in a pre-9/11 America. However, I do think it still has something to say about its character conflicts, as each character is in some way fed up with their mundane life, and also they are all mostly sexually frustrated in some way, which are themes that I think are still important today, especially in the internet age, where I think there are a lot more distant, lonely people, and themes that are universal for the most part. I think one of the best aged aspects of the film for me is the character of Ricky Fitz. Now, he's almost too smart, in the sense he's a catalyst for people to improve their lives and seems to be almost a perfect person. However, I do think they make it work via him being a stoner, which makes it much more believable that he would act this way. And in fact, the film hints at him being a Buddhist given his dislike of... He's basically the film's hero, and isn't scared to be himself, and wants people to do and be who they are, via his filming of Jane, which is made obvious as a metaphor for him wanting to look closer and him being much more interested on a human level towards Jane. Lester's desk even having the sign "Look Closer" and him looking at his computer monitor and it being shot to look as though he is in prison. He's a positive catalyst for everybody, whether it's Lester, get him stand up for himself, his dad, where it's made obvious he knows about his dad's homosexuality from the start, to Jane, who he enters a relationship with, and Angela, who he deconstructs everything wrong with her to her face. And his character, despite all the film's flaws, is a highly positive aspect of the film, and he can even be perceived as a positive male role model, given his positive outlook on life and his ability to not be violent. So, in conclusion, I think the film, whilst not perfect, has mostly still aged quite well, as despite it being relevant to a certain time period in America, it does have those universal themes that all great stories have. So, overall, the film I do think aged well. Now, it might not be as groundbreaking as and unique as when it came out, however, it still features great acting, great writing, cinematography, soundtrack, all of which, in my opinion, makes a great film.